The gavel crashes down with the weight of absolute authority, its echo bouncing off the mahogany panels of Courtroom 7 like a death knell. Judge Sterling Whitmore leans forward from his elevated bench, his pale blue eyes narrowing with the kind of contempt that comes from 20 years of unchallenged power. Below him, standing alone at the defendant's table in a simple gray dress that has seen better days, Jasmine Caldwell keeps her hands folded with an unsettling stillness that seems out of place for someone facing what's about to come. "Another one of your kind thinking you can game the system." Sterling's voice drips with venom as he adjusts his reading glasses, making a show of examining the papers before him, though his mind was clearly made up the moment she walked through those doors. "Did you really think your cheap tricks would work in my courtroom?" The words hang in the air like a toxic cloud. 53 people pack the gallery behind the bar, some here for other cases, others drawn by the spectacle that Sterling Whitmore's courtroom has become known for. The judge has a reputation, whispered in the hallways of the courthouse and the holding cells beneath it. When certain people end up before him, the verdict is predetermined, the sentence harsh, and the message clear. Jasmine doesn't flinch. Her dark eyes remain fixed on a point just above Sterling's shoulder, as if she's looking at something only she can see. There's no tremor in her hands, no quickening of breath that would betray fear or anger. She stands there like a statue carved from ebony and determination, weathering his contempt with a patience that seems almost supernatural. "You people always claim innocence," Sterling continues, his voice rising slightly as if performing for the packed gallery. "But I see right through your lies. Every single time, it's the same story, the same excuses, the same attempts to manipulate this sacred institution of justice." 3 hours earlier, the intersection of Madison and 5th had been just another busy corner in downtown Millbrook. The traffic light hung red above the crosswalk, and Jasmine's 10-year-old Honda Civic sat properly in the right lane, her turn signal blinking steadily as she waited for the light to change. The radio played softly, some jazz station she'd found that reminded her of Sunday mornings growing up. She was thinking about lesson plans for her kindergarten class tomorrow, about little Marcus who was finally starting to come out of his shell, about the parent-teacher conferences next week. The impact came without warning. The screech of tires, the sickening crunch of metal on metal, her body jerking forward against the seatbelt. Her coffee, which had been cooling in the cup holder, exploded across the dashboard. In the rearview mirror, she could see the BMW that had slammed into her, its front end crumpled, steam rising from under the hood. The driver's door flew open and out stumbled Bradley Blackstone, 23 years old, with the kind of carefully styled hair that costs more than most people's rent. Even from inside her car, she could see him swaying slightly, could see the way he had to grab the door to steady himself. By the time Jasmine had unbuckled her seatbelt and stepped out to check the damage, Bradley was already on his phone, not calling insurance or 911, but someone else entirely. His words were slurred but urgent. "Dad? Yeah, I need you to. There's been a thing. Madison and 5th. No, I'm fine, but you need to call Sterling. Now." 2 police cruisers arrived within minutes, faster than she'd ever seen them respond to this part of town. Officers Davis and Kowalski stepped out of the first car, their faces set in expressions of professional boredom, until Bradley whispered something to Davis, showed him something on his phone. The officer's entire demeanor changed in an instant, his spine straightening, his hand moving to rest on his belt. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to turn around and put your hands behind your back," Davis said, pulling out his handcuffs. "Excuse me?" Jasmine's voice remained calm, though her mind was racing. "He rear-ended me. I was stopped at a red light. Ma'am, we have witnesses saying you reversed into Mr. Blackstone's vehicle in an attempt at insurance fraud. Turn around. Now!" The handcuffs were cold against her wrists, tighter than necessary. As they guided her toward the patrol car, she caught a glimpse of Bradley smirking, his phone still in his hand. 3 pedestrians stood on the corner, their phones out, recording everything. But when Jasmine tried to make eye contact, they looked away. Sterling's voice cuts through the memory, bringing her back to the present moment of the courtroom. "Before we proceed with this farce of a trial, let me make something abundantly clear. This court has zero tolerance for those who think they can manipulate our justice system for personal gain. Insurance fraud is not just a crime against a company. It's a crime against every honest, hardworking citizen who pays their premiums." The prosecutor, Garrett Pemberton, stands at his table organizing his files with the confidence of a man who knows the outcome before the game begins. Pemberton is young for a prosecutor, maybe 35, with the kind of aggressive ambition that Sterling has always found useful. He's won his last 17 cases in this courtroom, a streak that has more to do with the judge than his legal acumen, though he'd never admit it. "Your Honor," Jasmine speaks for the first time, her voice carrying a quiet authority that makes several people in the gallery lean forward. I haven't been provided with legal counsel. I have the right to... Public defenders, Sterling interrupts with a dismissive wave, are for citizens who contribute to society, not for those who prey upon it. You'll represent yourself or not at all. Mr. Pemberton, please present your evidence. The prosecutor steps forward, a thin folder in his hand that seems too light to contain enough evidence to convict anyone of anything. Your Honor, the state will show that the defendant deliberately reversed her vehicle into Mr. Bradley Blackstone's BMW at the intersection of Madison and 5th at approximately 2:30 p.m. this afternoon. We have the testimony of Mr. Blackstone himself, as well as supporting witnesses who saw the entire incident. Objection, Jasmine says quietly. The police report states the incident occurred at 2:15 p.m., not 2:30. Which is it? Sterling's face reddens slightly. The defendant will remain silent unless asked a direct question. This is not a debate club and you are not a lawyer. Continue, Mr. Pemberton. Garrett glances at his notes, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his features before he regains his composure. The exact time is immaterial to the facts of the case. The defendant caused significant damage to Mr. Blackstone's vehicle in a clear attempt at fraud. May I see the police report, Ms.? Jasmine asks. No, you may not, Sterling snaps. The evidence will be presented as the prosecution sees fit. You'll have your chance to respond after, though I doubt you'll have anything worthwhile to say. The door at the back of the courtroom opens and Mayor Harrison Blackstone enters, his presence commanding immediate attention. He's a big man, not just physically but in the way he occupies space, as if the air itself parts for him. He takes a seat in the front row, directly behind the prosecution's table, his eyes fixed on Sterling with an expression that speaks volumes without words. The judge gives the slightest of nods, an acknowledgement that would be imperceptible to most, but carries the weight of years of mutual understanding. Now then, Sterling continues, settling back in his chair with the satisfaction of a predator who has cornered his prey. Mr. Blackstone, please take the stand. Bradley Blackstone walks to the witness stand with the practiced ease of someone who has never faced a consequence he couldn't buy his way out of. He's changed clothes since the accident, now wearing a suit that probably costs more than Jasmine makes in a month. As he raises his hand to take the oath, she notices the slight tremor in his fingers, the way he has to focus on the bailiff's words to repeat them correctly. Please tell the court what happened this afternoon, Garrett prompts, his tone gentle, coaching. I was driving down Madison, approaching the intersection at 5th. Bradley begins, his words careful, rehearsed. The light was green for me. As I entered the intersection, the defendant's car suddenly reversed at high speed, slamming into the front of my vehicle. That's impossible, Jasmine interjects. The damage patterns would be... The gavel slams down. The defendant will remain silent or be held in contempt, Bradley continues, gaining confidence from the judge's protection. She got out of her car and immediately started yelling about money, saying I'd better pay up or she'd make trouble for me. She seemed intoxicated. I could smell alcohol on her. The lie is so brazen, so completely divorced from reality that Jasmine actually has to suppress a laugh. She hasn't had a drink in 5 years, not since her promotion to the position that nobody in this room knows she holds. But she remains silent, watching, cataloging every word, every gesture, every glance between the players in this choreographed charade. Your Honor, according to Rule 403 of Federal Evidence, Jasmine begins, her voice cutting through the courtroom with surgical precision. Evidence may be excluded if its probative value is substantially outweighed by the danger of unfair prejudice. The prosecution hasn't provided any breathalyzer results, any field sobriety test documentation, or any actual evidence of intoxication beyond Mr. Blackstone's claim. Sterling's eyes narrow dangerously. I warned you about speaking out of turn. One more word, and you'll spend the night in jail for contempt. Evelyn Torres, the court clerk who has been diligently typing every word of this travesty, pauses. Her fingers hover over the keyboard as she looks at Jasmine, really looks at her for the first time. There's something familiar about the woman's face, something about the way she holds herself, the precise legal language she uses despite claiming to be a kindergarten teacher. Evelyn's mind races back 5 years to a federal legal conference in Washington, to a keynote speaker who talked about judicial corruption with a passion that had made the entire auditorium lean forward in their seats. Mr. Blackstone, Garrett continues, were there any witnesses to this incident? Yes, several people saw what happened. I believe you have their statements. Garrett produces 3 affidavits, holding them up for the court to see. Your Honor, we have sworn statements from 3 witnesses who corroborate Mr. Blackstone's version of events. May I see those statements? Jasmine asks. The The defendant has no right to discovery in a case this straightforward, Sterling declares. The witnesses have provided sworn testimony. That should be sufficient for someone claiming innocence. At this moment, you're probably feeling your blood boil. How can a judge be this corrupt? How can the system be so obviously rigged against someone who's done nothing wrong? If this injustice makes you angry, hit that subscribe button right now, because what happens next will restore your faith in the idea that karma always finds a way. Every subscription helps us tell more stories of justice prevailing against corruption. The first witness takes the stand, a nervous-looking man in an ill-fitting suit who keeps glancing at Mayor Blackstone as if seeking approval. State your name for the record, Ota, Garrett instructs. Thomas Garrett. Garrett Thomas. Sorry, I'm nervous. His hands shake as he adjusts the microphone. Mr. Thomas, what did you see at the intersection this afternoon? I saw her car reverse into the BMW. It was definitely deliberate. She was going pretty fast backward. Thomas, Jasmine interjects before Sterling can stop her. Which direction were you facing when you witnessed this? The man freezes, his eyes darting to the mayor, then to Sterling. I was facing the intersection. From which corner? Northeast? Southwest? Where exactly were you standing? That's enough, Sterling barks. The witness has answered the question. The defendant will stop badgering him. The second witness, a woman who works in the mayor's office, though she doesn't mention that fact, tells almost the exact same story, using eerily similar phrases. She reversed at high speed. It was definitely deliberate. The BMW driver had no chance to avoid it. The third witness, another city employee, adds the detail about smelling alcohol, though he claims to have been standing 50 feet away at the time. Jasmine watches it all with the patience of someone who has spent years building cases, understanding that sometimes you have to let the lies pile up high enough that when they fall, they take everyone down with them. She pulls a folded piece of paper from her pocket, a simple gesture that makes Sterling lean forward slightly. What is that? The judge demands. Just some notes I made at the scene, she replies mildly, including Mr. Blackstone's license plate number and some interesting information about his driving record. Bradley's face pales slightly. Garrett Pemberton shifts uncomfortably. Even Sterling seems momentarily uncertain. Your Honor, Garrett says quickly, the defendant's driving record is not at issue here. Actually, Jasmine says, unfolding the paper with deliberate slowness, it's highly relevant if we're discussing who might have caused an accident. Mr. Blackstone has 3 DUI arrests in the past 18 months, though strangely none of them resulted in convictions. All 3 cases were dismissed. All 3 were heard in this courtroom. The gallery erupts in whispers. Sterling's gavel comes down repeatedly, the sharp cracks echoing like gunshots. Order! I will have order. Bailiff, confiscates that document immediately. The bailiff, an older man named Carl who has worked this courtroom for 15 years, hesitates. He's seen a lot in his time, but something about this feels different. Feels wrong in a way that makes his stomach turn. Now, bailiff! Sterling roars. Carl walks slowly to Jasmine, his hand extended for the paper. As he takes it, she looks him in the eye and says quietly, USC Title 18, Section 242, Deprivation of Rights under Color of Law, just so you know what you're participating in. Carl's hand trembles as he delivers the paper to Sterling, who snatches it and immediately tears it in half without reading it. The defendant's attempt to introduce inadmissible evidence and prejudice this court is noted. Pemberton, do you have any additional witnesses? No, Your Honor. The prosecution rests. Then I'm ready to render my verdict, Sterling announces, not even pretending to deliberate. Your Honor, Jasmine says, standing straighter, her voice carrying a new edge of authority. I haven't been allowed to present any defense. This is a violation of the Sixth Amendment right to a fair trial. I demand the opportunity to— You demand? Sterling's voice rises to nearly a shout. You demand? You are a nobody, a nothing, a parasite trying to extract money from a productive member of society, and you dare to make demands in my courtroom? Garrett Pemberton stands suddenly, surprising everyone. Your Honor, perhaps we should allow the defendant to speak, just for the record, to avoid any potential appeals issues. Sterling turns his glare on the prosecutor. Mr. Pemberton, know your place. I do know my place, Your Honor, Garrett responds, his voice steady though sweat beads on his forehead. My place is to ensure justice is served properly. Something about this doesn't feel right. The tension in the courtroom ratchets up another notch. Mayor Blackstone half rises from his seat, his face darkening. Evelyn Torres stops typing altogether, her mind racing as more pieces click into place. She remembers now, remembers the speaker's name, remembers the passion with which she spoke about systemic corruption, about the need for federal oversight of local courts. If Jasmine had the Legal Shield app on her phone, she could have been recording this entire proceeding legally and safely. This app helps you know your rights in real time and document any violations of justice. It saved thousands of people from situations just like this. Download it free today and make sure you're never caught without protection against corrupt officials. Because in a world where justice can be bought and sold, you need every tool available to protect yourself. Mr. Pemberton, Sterling says, his voice dangerously quiet now, you seem to have forgotten that this is my courtroom. I decide what justice looks like here. And justice, in this case, is protecting innocent citizens like Mr. Blackstone from predators like her. He points at Jasmine with his gavel, the gesture dismissive and cruel. I haven't even been allowed to tell my side of what happened, Jasmine says calmly. The traffic cameras at that intersection would show exactly what occurred. Why haven't those been introduced as evidence? The cameras were malfunctioning, Garrett says, but his voice lacks conviction. The footage from 2:10 p.m. to 2:35 p.m. is unavailable. How convenient, Jasmine observes. Just like the dashcam footage from Officers Davis and Kowalski's patrol cars, I assume. Let me guess. Also malfunctioning? The defendant will stop this fishing expedition immediately, Sterling commands. I've heard enough to make my decision. On the charge of insurance fraud, I find the defendant guilty. On the charge of reckless driving, guilty. On the charge of filing a false police report, guilty. I never filed a police report, Jasmine interjects. I wasn't allowed to. Officers Davis and Kowalski refused to take my statement. Sterling continues as if she hadn't spoken. On the charge of public intoxication, guilty. On the charge of disorderly conduct, guilty. Those charges were never even mentioned until now, Garrett Pemberton says, his legal training finally overcoming his fear. Your Honor, this is not proper procedure. Sterling stands, his black robes billowing as he leans forward over his bench. Mr. Pemberton, you are either with the program or you're against it. And trust me, you do not want to be against it. Now sit down and be quiet, or you'll find yourself defending traffic tickets in municipal court for the rest of your very short career. The threat hangs in the air like a poison cloud. Garrett slowly sinks back into his chair, but his hands are clenched into fists, his jaw tight with suppressed rage. He looks at Jasmine and for the first time really sees her. Sees the calm in her eyes, the measured way she's responding to each escalation, the precise legal language she uses. This is not some random kindergarten teacher. This is something else entirely. Bradley Blackstone, still on the witness stand, makes his first mistake. High on the adrenaline of watching his father's pet judge destroy another innocent person, he adds an unnecessary detail. She was definitely drunk, Your Honor. She could barely stand straight. And she said something about knowing who I was, about my father. It was clearly a targeted attack. Jasmine's eyes snapped to him. Mr. Blackstone, you just testified that I said something about knowing who you were. What exactly did I say? Bradley freezes, realizing he's gone off script. You said you knew my father was the mayor. Interesting. Because according to your earlier testimony, I only yelled about wanting money. Which is it? Did I mention your father or did I demand money? Both. You did both. In what order? I don't. What does it matter? It matters, Jasmine says, her voice taking on a harder edge. Because lies are hard to keep straight. Truth doesn't change, but lies always do. Your Honor, I move to have Mr. Blackstone's testimony stricken as inconsistent and unreliable. Motion denied, Sterling says automatically. The witness's testimony stands. Something's not right here. Can you feel it? Why is Jasmine so calm when she's being railroaded? What does she know that nobody else in that courtroom knows? Keep watching, because in the next few minutes, this entire courtroom is going to flip upside down in a way that will leave you speechless. But first, smash that like button if you believe corruption needs to be exposed. And share this with someone who needs to see that justice isn't always blind. Sometimes it's just waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Evelyn Torres can't take it anymore. She stands up from her desk, her chair scraping against the floor with a sound that draws every eye to her. Your Honor, I need to check something in the court records. It's urgent. Sit down, Miss Torres. You'll check nothing until this proceeding is complete. It's about the defendant, Your Honor. I think there's something you need to know. Sterling's eyes narrow to slits. Miss Torres, you've worked in this courthouse for 8 years. You know better than to interrupt proceedings. Sit down. Now. Evelyn looks at Jasmine, their eyes meeting across the courtroom. Jasmine gives the slightest shake of her head, so subtle that only Evelyn catches it. The message is clear. Not yet. Evelyn slowly sits back down, but her fingers fly across her keyboard, not transcribing the proceedings, but searching for something else entirely. Now then, Sterling continues, his composure returning. Sentencing will be as follows. For insurance fraud, 2 years in state prison. For reckless driving, 6 months. For filing a false police report. Your Honor, Jasmine interrupts, her voice cutting through his pronouncement like a blade. Before you continue, you should know that everything happening in this courtroom is being watched. Every word, every illegal action, every violation of judicial ethics and federal law. Sterling laughs, a harsh barking sound. Watched? By whom? Your imaginary friends? The cameras in this courtroom are controlled by me. The record is what I say it is. Not those cameras, Jasmine says quietly. She reaches into her pocket again, this time pulling out a small, official-looking badge that she keeps folded in her palm, not yet revealing it fully. I'm talking about the federal surveillance that's been recording every transaction, every bribe, every fixed case in this courtroom for the past 8 months. The color drains from Sterling's face so quickly that for a moment he looks like he might faint. Mayor Blackstone shoots to his feet, his chair toppling backward with a crash. Bradley's mouth opens and closes like a fish gasping for air. You're bluffing, Sterling manages, though his voice has lost its commanding tone. You're nobody. You're a kindergarten teacher. I checked your background myself. You checked the background of Jasmine Caldwell, kindergarten teacher, she agrees. But you didn't check deep enough. You didn't check who Jasmine Caldwell was before she became a kindergarten teacher. You didn't check why someone with a doctorate in criminal justice and 15 years of experience in federal law enforcement would suddenly decide to teach 5-year-olds in Millbrook. Garrett Pemberton stands slowly, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and hope. Your Honor, I think we should recess. Something's not right here. Nothing's not right, Sterling shouts, panic creeping into his voice. This is my courtroom. I decide what's right. Actually, Jasmine says, finally opening her palm to reveal the badge, its gold surface catching the fluorescent lights, the letters FBI clearly visible. That's where you're wrong. This stopped being your courtroom the moment you took your first bribe from Harrison Blackstone. That was October 15th, 2022. $50,000 to dismiss drug possession charges against Bradley. Would you like me to continue with the dates and amounts, or should I skip to the part where you met with Vincent Torino to discuss fixing cases for his organization? The silence in the courtroom is absolute. Even the constant hum of the air conditioning seems to have stopped. 53 people sit frozen in their seats, watching the impossible unfold before their eyes. The untouchable Judge Sterling Whitmore, the man who has ruled this courtroom with an iron fist for 2 decades, is shaking visibly, his hands gripping the edge of his bench so tightly his knuckles are white. You can't. This is entrapment, he stammers. No, Your Honor, Jasmine says, standing taller now, her presence seeming to fill the room. Entrapment would be if I induced you to commit a crime you wouldn't otherwise commit. But you've been committing these crimes long before I arrived. I'm just the one who finally gathered enough evidence to stop you. Mayor Blackstone starts moving toward the door, but Jasmine speaks without even looking at him. I wouldn't do that, Mr. Mayor. The federal agents outside have been waiting very patiently, but if you try to leave before I give the signal, they're instructed to assume you're fleeing arrest. That never ends well. The mayor freezes mid-step, his face cycling through emotions. Rage, fear, disbelief, and finally, a terrible understanding. His empire, built over 15 years of careful corruption and calculated bribes, is crumbling in real time. Bradley, he says, his voice hollow, don't say anything else. Too late for that advice, Jasmine observes. Your son already perjured himself multiple times. It's all on record. The real record, not the one Sterling was planning to doctor later. Evelyn Torres's computer screen fills with search results and she gasps audibly. There it is from the Federal Legal Conference 5 years ago. Keynote speaker Director Jasmine Caldwell, FBI Special Operations Division. Corruption in plain sight, how federal oversight can restore local justice. The accompanying photo shows the same woman now standing in their courtroom, though in the photo she's wearing an expensive suit and standing behind a podium bearing the FBI seal. Your Honor, Evelyn says, her voice shaking. She's telling the truth. She's really FBI. Check your email, Jasmine tells Sterling. The one that came in at 8:47 a.m. this morning. The one you dismissed as routine federal notification about court observations. You should have read it more carefully. It was formal notice that this courtroom was under federal investigation. Your administrative assistant marked it as read, but you never actually looked at it, did you? Sterling frantically opens his laptop, his fingers fumbling with the password. There it is, in his inbox, marked as read, but never actually opened by him. The subject line, Notice of Federal Oversight, Courtroom 7. His assistant, trying to be helpful, had marked it as read, along with dozens of other routine emails. Inside, in clear bureaucratic language, is notification that federal agents would be observing court proceedings as part of an ongoing investigation into judicial misconduct. This doesn't mean anything, Sterling says desperately. You still assaulted Mr. Blackstone's vehicle. You still committed fraud. Did I? Jasmine asks mildly. Mr. Blackstone, would you like to tell the court your actual blood alcohol level at the time of the accident? Or should I have the federal agents bring in the breathalyzer results from the portable unit they used when they arrived at the scene 3 minutes after the collision? You know, the federal agents who were following me as part of my protection detail? Bradley looks like he might vomit. His father has gone completely pale, sinking slowly into his seat as the magnitude of their situation becomes clear. You set us up, the mayor whispers. No, Jasmine corrects. I gave you every opportunity to do the right thing. Bradley could have taken responsibility for rear-ending me while intoxicated. The officers could have filed an honest report. Mr. Pemberton could have refused to prosecute a clearly fabricated case, and Judge Whitmore could have insisted on actual evidence before trying to convict me. At every step you had a choice. You all chose corruption. Garrett Pemberton moves away from the prosecution table, physically distancing himself from the conspiracy. Director Caldwell, I want to state for the record that I was pressured into this prosecution. Judge Whitmore threatened my career if I didn't play along. I have documentation of previous cases where I was forced to prosecute innocent people. Your cooperation is noted, Mr. Pemberton, Jasmine says, though you'll still need to answer for your participation. The fact that you were coerced is a mitigating factor, not an excuse. Sterling slams his gavel repeatedly, the sound becoming increasingly frantic. This proceeding is adjourned. Everyone out. Clear the courtroom. I don't think so, Jasmine says. She looks toward the main doors and nods once. The doors burst open with controlled precision. 12 FBI agents in tactical vests stream in, their movements coordinated and professional. Leading them is Special Agent Morrison, a tall woman with sharp eyes and an expression that could freeze water. Director Caldwell, Morrison says crisply, the perimeter is secured. We're ready to proceed with arrests. The gallery erupts. People pull out their phones, recording everything. Reporters who were here for other cases frantically call their newsrooms. The bailiff, Carl, stands frozen, unsure whether to follow Sterling's orders or step aside for the federal agents. Carl, Jasmine says gently, you don't have to be part of this. Step aside and let us do our job. Carl looks at Sterling, then at the FBI agents, then makes his decision. He steps away from his post, removing his courthouse badge and setting it on the table. I've seen enough, Your Honor. I'm done being part of this. Sterling's facade finally cracks completely. You can't do this. I'm a federal judge. I have immunity. You're a state judge, Jasmine corrects. And judicial immunity doesn't cover criminal acts. You took bribes, Sterling. You fixed cases. You destroyed lives for money. You violated your oath and the public trust. And you did it all while wearing that robe, turning this courtroom into a criminal enterprise. She turns to address the packed gallery, her voice carrying the authority of someone who has waited a long time for this moment. For 8 months, I've watched this courthouse operate like a business, selling verdicts to the highest bidder. I've seen innocent people convicted on fabricated evidence. I've seen the guilty walk free because they had the right connections. I've documented over 200 cases of judicial misconduct, 47 instances of bribery, and a conspiracy that reaches from this bench all the way to City Hall. Mayor Blackstone stands slowly, his political instincts finally kicking in. This is a misunderstanding. My son was in an accident. If the officers made an error in their report, that's not my doing. I'm happy to cooperate with any investigation. Mr. Mayor, Agent Morrison says, moving toward him, we have recordings of you calling Judge Whitmore 17 minutes after the accident. We have the text messages between you and Officers Davis and Kowalski. We have your financial records showing regular payments to Sterling Whitmore through a shell company called Millbrook Judicial Consulting. Would you like to revise your statement? The mayor's shoulders slump in defeat. He knows the game is over. Bradley suddenly bolts from the witness stand, trying to push past the FBI agents toward the side door. He makes it exactly 3 steps before 2 agents efficiently restrain him. Let me go. This is my father. You can't do this. Bradley Blackstone, Agent Morrison says formally, you're under arrest for perjury, conspiracy to obstruct justice, and filing a false police report. You have the right to remain silent. As they read him his rights, Bradley breaks down completely, the entitled young man who has never faced a consequence in his life, finally meeting reality. Dad, do something. Call someone. There's no one to call, son, Harrison says quietly. We own everyone in this courthouse. Apparently, that was the problem. If you've been waiting for justice, here it comes. After years of corruption, dozens of innocent people imprisoned, and countless lives destroyed, the hammer of justice is finally falling on Judge Sterling Whitmore and his network of corruption. Hit that subscribe button right now if you want to see how this ends. Because we're just getting started. Share this story with everyone you know, because this is proof that no one is above the law, no matter how powerful they think they are. Sterling makes one last desperate attempt to salvage something from the wreckage. Director Caldwell, perhaps we can discuss this. I have information about other corrupt officials. I can cooperate. I can help you clean up the entire state judiciary. You're right, Jasmine says. You will cooperate. You will provide information, but you'll do it from a federal detention center while awaiting trial for racketeering, conspiracy, money laundering, and violation of civil rights under color of law. Your cooperation might reduce your sentence from life to 25 years. That's the best deal you're going to get. She pulls out a thick folder from her bag, the same bag Sterling had dismissed as belonging to nobody important. June 3rd, 2023. You took $50,000 from Vincent Torino to dismiss charges against 3 of his dealers. June 19th. You took another $30,000 to ensure a rival dealer got the maximum sentence. July 2nd, $75,000 to fix a civil case in favor of Blackstone Development Group. Should I continue? With each date and amount, Sterling seems to shrink, his powerful presence diminishing until he looks like what he really is, a small, corrupt man who sold his oath for money. August 15th, Jasmine continues relentlessly. You had an innocent man named Marcus Washington sentenced to 15 years for a crime he didn't commit because Vincent Torino wanted him out of the way. Marcus has 3 children. His wife had to sell their house to pay for appeals that you made sure would fail. He's still in prison, but not for much longer. Evelyn Torres starts crying, remembering the Washington case, remembering how wrong it had felt, how she'd gone home that night and couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, knowing an innocent man had just been destroyed in the very place where justice was supposed to live. September 22nd, Jasmine's voice rises slightly, the first real emotion she's shown. You sentenced Maria Santos to 5 years for possession of drugs that were planted by the same officers who arrested me today. She was a single mother working 2 jobs. Her children are in foster care now, because you needed to meet your quota for Vincent Torino. Several people in the gallery gasp. Maria Santos was well known in the community, a woman who ran a small restaurant and gave free meals to homeless veterans. Her arrest and conviction had shocked everyone who knew her. October 9th, you took $100,000 to ensure that Bradley Blackstone's 3rd DUI charge disappeared. The person he hit that time, elderly woman named Barbara Wilson, is still in physical therapy. She'll never walk properly again. But Bradley walked free because his father owns you. Dorothy Wilson's son is actually in the gallery, having come to watch another case. He stands up, his face twisted with rage and recognition. That's why nothing happened to him. My mother is in a wheelchair because of him. The FBI agents tense, ready to intervene, but the man just stands there, tears streaming down his face, finally understanding why justice had failed his family. NordVPN isn't just about protecting your identity online. It's about ensuring that when you fight corruption, when you stand up to power, your digital footprint can't be used against you. Just like Director Caldwell protected her identity for 8 months while building this case, you need protection in the digital age. Use code JUSTICE for 70% off your first year. Because in a world where the powerful track your every move, privacy isn't just convenient, it's necessary. Sterling suddenly lunges for his desk drawer, and for a moment everyone freezes, fearing he might have a weapon. But he pulls out a cell phone, frantically trying to dial a number. An FBI agent quickly relieves him of it. Calling your handler won't help, Jasmine informs him. Vincent Torino was arrested 45 minutes ago at his estate. We timed it perfectly. His entire network is being rolled up as we speak. 15 locations, 67 arrests. Your protection is gone, Sterling. The judge collapses back into his chair, the fight finally going out of him. 20 years of absolute power ended in a single morning. The throne he built on the suffering of innocence has become his prison. Garrett Pemberton steps forward, pulling a flash drive from his pocket. Director Caldwell, this contains records of every case Sterling forced me to prosecute. Every innocent person, every fabricated evidence, every threat he made. I've been documenting it for 2 years, hoping someone would eventually stop him. Why didn't you come forward sooner? Jasmine asks, though her tone is more curious than accusatory. Because he owns the state attorney general. He owns half the state legislature. Where was I supposed to go? Who was I supposed to trust? Everyone who tried to stand up to him ended up destroyed or dead. Dead? Agent Morrison interrupts, her interest sharpening. Assistant DA Michelle Reeves. She tried to report Sterling 2 years ago. Car accident 3 days later. No witnesses, no investigation. Everyone knew what it really was. Jasmine and Morrison exchange glances. We'll be adding murder conspiracy to the charges, Jasmine says quietly. Michelle Reeves's death will not go unavenged. The weight of this revelation settles over the courtroom like a shroud. This isn't just corruption anymore. It's murder. The stakes have shifted from prison time to potential death penalty. Sterling, perhaps realizing the same thing, makes one last desperate play. I want a lawyer. I'm not saying anything else without a lawyer. That's your right, Jasmine agrees. Though I wonder if you'll give your court-appointed public defender more respect than you gave me. After all, according to you, they're only for people who contribute to society. The irony is not lost on anyone. Sterling Whitmore, who just an hour ago denied Jasmine the right to counsel, is now desperately clinging to that same right himself. Your Honor, Carl the bailiff says, addressing Sterling with obvious disgust, should I update the court record to reflect that you've been arrested? Or would you prefer to do that yourself? Sterling doesn't answer. He can't. The man who commanded words like weapons is finally, mercifully, silent. Agent Morrison steps forward with the handcuffs. Sterling Whitmore, you are under arrest for racketeering, conspiracy, money laundering, deprivation of rights under color of law, and conspiracy to commit murder. You have the right to remain silent. As the metal clicks around Sterling's wrists, the sound echoes through the courtroom with a finality that makes several people in the gallery start applauding. The applause spreads, growing louder until the entire room is on its feet, clapping for the fall of a tyrant and the triumph of justice. But Jasmine doesn't celebrate. She watches with the solemnity of someone who knows the real work is just beginning. 200 cases to review. Dozens of innocent people to free. Families to reunite. Lives to rebuild. The corruption in this courthouse runs deep, and rooting it out will take months, maybe years. Director Caldwell, Evelyn Torres approaches hesitantly. I want to help. I have 8 years of transcripts. I know which cases were fixed. I know where the bodies are buried, so to speak. Your help would be invaluable, Miss Torres, but you'll need to answer questions about why you didn't come forward sooner. I was terrified, Evelyn admits. I have 2 kids. Sterling made it clear what would happen if anyone crossed him, but I kept copies of everything. Original transcripts before he made me change them. Audio recordings of proceedings he thought were deleted. I have it all hidden away. Where? Morrison asks urgently. Safety deposit box at First National, box 572. I've been preparing for this day, hoping someone like you would come. Jasmine nods approvingly. Get that evidence. We'll need every piece of it. As Sterling is led away in handcuffs, he turns back one last time, his face twisted with hatred. You think you've won? You have no idea how deep this goes. They'll come for you, all of you. Let them come, Jasmine replies calmly. I'll be waiting. The mayor is cuffed next, maintaining his political composure even as his world crumbles. I want to make a deal, he says to Morrison. Full cooperation for immunity. You're not getting immunity, Morrison responds flatly. The best you can hope for is a reduced sentence, and that depends entirely on how much you help us. I know everything, Harrison says desperately. Every dirty deal, every bribe, every official on the take. I have names, dates, amounts. I have recordings of my own. Then you'd better start talking, Jasmine says, because your son is looking at 10 years minimum for his part in this. Your cooperation might be the only thing that keeps him from spending his 20s and 30s in federal prison. The mention of Bradley breaks something in Harrison. The mighty mayor, who has controlled Millbrook with an iron fist for 15 years, starts to cry. Not the practiced tears of a politician, but the raw, ugly sobs of a father who has led his son into disaster. Bradley himself is still in shock, his privileged world evaporating in real time. This isn't happening. This can't be happening. Do you know who I am? Yes, Jasmine says, looking at him with something that might be pity. You're a young man who was raised to believe consequences don't apply to you. Your father failed you by teaching you that money and power mean more than integrity. But you're also an adult who made choices, bad choices. Now you'll face the results of those choices. But I was drunk. I didn't mean to hit her car. No, but you meant to lie about it. You meant to commit perjury. You meant to let an innocent woman go to prison rather than take responsibility. Those were all choices you made while sober. As Bradley is led away, Garrett Pemberton approaches Jasmine again. What happens to me? That depends on you, Mr. Pemberton. You participated in corruption, but you were also a victim of it. Your cooperation, both past and future, will be taken into consideration. You'll likely face disbarment and possibly some jail time. But if you help us unravel all of Sterling's cases, if you help us free the innocent people you helped convict, that will go a long way toward redemption. I want to help, Garrett says firmly. I became a prosecutor to seek justice. I lost my way, but maybe I can find it again. Maybe you can, Jasmine agrees. The path to redemption starts with acknowledgement of wrongdoing. You've taken that first step. The courtroom is gradually emptying as FBI agents process the scene, collecting evidence, taking statements. The reporters have rushed out to file their stories. Within an hour, the arrest of Judge Sterling Whitmore and Mayor Harrison Blackstone will be breaking news across the state. One person remains seated in the gallery, Dorothy Wilson's son, David. He approaches Jasmine slowly, his face a mixture of gratitude and pain. My mother will never walk properly again, he says quietly, but at least now I can tell her that justice was finally done. Thank you. I'm sorry it took so long, Jasmine replies. No one should have to wait for justice. Your mother's medical bills, her pain and suffering, they should be compensated. We'll make sure Bradley Blackstone's assets go toward restitution for his victims. It's not about money, David says. It's about the fact that for 2 years, I've had to watch him drive around town in his BMW, laughing with his friends, living his life, while my mother struggles to get from her bed to her wheelchair. The injustice of it was killing me slowly. Injustice is a poison, Jasmine agrees. It corrupts everything it touches. That's why we have to root it out wherever we find it, no matter how powerful the people involved. As the last of the conspirators are led away, Jasmine turns to survey the empty courtroom. The bench where Sterling Whitmore dispensed injustice for 20 years sits empty. The witness stand where Bradley Blackstone committed perjury is abandoned. The gallery where citizens came seeking justice only to find corruption is silent. But it won't stay empty for long. Tomorrow, a new judge will sit at that bench. Honest prosecutors will present real evidence. The innocent will be protected, and the guilty will face consequences. The temple of justice, so long defiled, will be cleansed and restored to its purpose. Evelyn Torres returns with a box full of flash drives and documents. 8 years of evidence, Director. Every dirty deal, every fixed case, every innocent person Sterling destroyed. This is invaluable, Miss Torres. With this, we can start to undo the damage. Can you really? Can you give people back the years they lost? Can you reunite families torn apart? Can you resurrect careers that were destroyed? No, Jasmine admits honestly. We can't undo the past, but we can ensure it never happens again. We can free the innocent who are still imprisoned. We can compensate victims as much as possible. And we can make sure that no other judge ever thinks they're above the law. Agent Morrison approaches with an update. Director, we've just arrested Officers Davis and Kowalski. They're already trying to flip on each other. This is going to unravel quickly. Good. The faster it unravels, the sooner we can start rebuilding. How many more arrests are we expecting? Based on the mayor's initial statement, at least 30 more. This cancer has metastasized throughout the city government. We're going to need more agents. They're already on the way, Jasmine confirms. This is now classified as a major corruption probe. We'll have 50 agents here by tomorrow. As they talk, Jasmine's phone buzzes with a text. She glances at it and allows herself a small smile. It's from Marcus Washington, the innocent man Sterling had imprisoned. His lawyer has just informed him that his case is being emergency reviewed, and he'll likely be free within 72 hours. Ma'am, one of the younger agents approaches. We found something in Sterling's chambers. You need to see this. They follow him to the judge's private office behind the courtroom. It's a shrine to his own power. Photos of him with politicians, celebrities, business leaders. Awards and commendations line the walls, but the agent leads them to a hidden safe behind a portrait of Lady Justice. Inside are stacks of cash, multiple burner phones, and most damning of all, a leather journal. Jasmine opens it to find Sterling's personal record of every bribe, every fixed case, every person who paid him for a specific verdict. It's all here in his own handwriting. He kept records, Morrison says in amazement. The arrogant fool actually kept records. Arrogance is often the downfall of the corrupt, Jasmine observes. They start to believe they're truly untouchable. Sterling probably thought this was his insurance policy, something he could use to bargain with if things went bad. Instead, it's going to bury him, Morrison says with satisfaction. They're interrupted by a commotion outside. Through the window, they can see news vans arriving, reporters setting up for live broadcasts. The story is spreading fast. Director Caldwell, Evelyn Torres says, returning with another box. There's something else you should know. Sterling wasn't the only corrupt judge in this courthouse. Judge Patricia Hawkins in courtroom 3 has been taking bribes too. Not as much as Sterling, but still. And Judge Robert Mitchell in courtroom 5 has been fixing custody cases in exchange for payments. Jasmine and Morrison exchange looks. This is bigger than they thought. We're going to need those 50 agents sooner rather than later, Morrison observes. Already on it, Jasmine says, pulling out her phone to make the call. As the afternoon sun streams through the courthouse windows, painting long shadows across the marble floors, the full scope of what has been accomplished begins to sink in. This morning, Sterling Whitmore was an untouchable force of corruption. This afternoon, he's in federal custody facing life in prison. This morning, Mayor Harrison Blackstone controlled the city with bribes and threats. This afternoon, his empire has crumbled. This morning, Bradley Blackstone was an entitled young man who had never faced a consequence. This afternoon, he's learning what accountability feels like. And this morning, Jasmine Caldwell was nobody, a kindergarten teacher being railroaded by a corrupt system. This afternoon, she has revealed herself as the architect of one of the largest corruption stings in state history. But the work is far from over. As Jasmine stands in the empty courtroom, she thinks of all the Marcus Washingtons and Maria Santoses still sitting in prison cells, victims of Sterling's greed. She thinks of all the Dorothy Wilsons who never received justice for their injuries. She thinks of Michelle Reeves, the assistant DA who died trying to do the right thing. Justice has been served today, but it's only the beginning. The roots of corruption run deep in Millbrook, and pulling them out will take time, patience, and unwavering determination. But for the first time in 20 years, there's hope. The system that seemed unbreakable has been broken. The powerful who seemed untouchable have been touched. Director Caldwell, Agent Morrison says, we need to prepare for the press conference. The media is demanding answers. Let them wait a bit longer, Jasmine replies. First, I want to make sure every innocent person Sterling convicted knows that their case is being reviewed. They've waited years for justice. They shouldn't have to wait another minute to know that hope has arrived. She pulls out her phone and makes another call. This is Director Caldwell. I need the emergency response team to begin immediate case reviews for all convictions in Judge Sterling Whitmore's court over the past 5 years. Priority goes to those currently incarcerated. Yes, all of them. I don't care if it takes all night. These people have suffered long enough. As she speaks, Evelyn Torres quietly begins to cry again, but this time they're tears of relief. The weight of 8 years of silent complicity, of watching injustice being done in the name of justice, finally lifts from her shoulders. Miss Torres, Jasmine says gently after ending her call, you did the right thing by preserving those records. Without them, we might never have been able to prove the full extent of the corruption. You're a hero. I'm not a hero, Evelyn protests. A hero would have spoken up years ago. A hero would have saved Marcus Washington and Maria Santos and all the others. You were frightened. You had children to protect. Sterling made sure everyone knew the consequences of crossing him. But when the moment came, when you had the chance to help, you did. That takes courage. Garrett Pemberton, who has been sitting quietly in the corner, finally speaks up. What can I do to help? Right now, today, what can I do? You can start by making a list of every case you prosecuted under Sterling's orders, where you knew or suspected the defendant was innocent. Include any evidence that was suppressed or fabricated. We need to fast-track those reviews. I'll have it for you within the hour, Garrett promises, pulling out his laptop. As the afternoon wears on, the courthouse becomes a hub of activity. FBI agents swarm through offices collecting evidence. Federal prosecutors arrive to begin preparing cases. Defense attorneys show up, eager to file motions for their wrongly convicted clients. And through it all, Jasmine remains calm, coordinated, professional. She's been preparing for this day for 8 months, and she knows exactly what needs to be done. By 5 p.m., the first emergency release orders are being signed. Marcus Washington will be home with his family tonight. Maria Santos will hug her children tomorrow. Dozens of others will taste freedom within the week. It's not perfect justice. Nothing can give them back the time they lost. But it's a start. As Jasmine finally prepares to face the media, to tell the story of corruption and justice to the world, she pauses at the courtroom door and looks back one more time. The seat where she stood this morning as a defendant is empty. The bench where Sterling Whitmore perverted justice is vacant, but the space between them is filled with the promise of something better. Tomorrow, an honest judge will sit at that bench. Tomorrow, real justice will be dispensed in this courtroom. Tomorrow, the people of Millbrook will be able to trust their justice system again. But today is for the reckoning. Today is for the truth. Today is for showing that no one, no matter how powerful, is above the law. Jasmine Caldwell, kindergarten teacher, walks out of the courtroom. Director Jasmine Caldwell, FBI Special Operations, walks into the spotlight. ready to tell the world that justice, though sometimes delayed, will not be denied. The reversal is complete. The powerful have fallen. The powerless have been lifted up. And, in Courtroom 7 of the Millbrook County Courthouse, the scales of justice, so long weighted by corruption, have finally been balanced. Sterling's fingers tremble as he grabs the edge of his bench, his knuckles white against the dark wood. The courtroom feels smaller suddenly, the walls pressing in as Jasmine stands there with that unsettling calm, holding something in her closed palm that catches the light. 42 minutes ago, she was nobody. Now, the tremor in Sterling's voice suggests she might be everybody's problem. Bailiff, Sterling's voice cracks slightly before he recovers his authoritarian tone. Arrest this woman immediately for identity fraud, contempt of court, and threatening a federal official. Carl hesitates, his hand hovering over his handcuffs. 20 years he's worked this courtroom. 20 years of watching Sterling operate, of seeing things that made his stomach turn, of going home to his wife and saying, that's just how the system works. But something in Jasmine's eyes, something in the way she stands there unafraid while Sterling practically vibrates with panic, makes him pause. I said arrest her, Sterling roars, spittle flying from his lips. Your Honor, Jasmine says, her voice cutting through his rage with surgical precision. Before Carl makes a decision that will affect the rest of his career, perhaps he should know that arresting a federal agent in the performance of their duties carries a mandatory 5-year sentence. USC Title 18, Section 111. I'm sure Carl doesn't want to leave his grandchildren without their grandfather for half a decade. Carl's hand drops from his belt entirely. He takes a step back, then another, until he's against the wall, physically removing himself from the situation. Evelyn Torres's fingers fly across her keyboard, not recording the proceedings anymore but searching frantically through federal databases, her clearance giving her access to information that makes her gasp audibly. There it is on her screen. Director Jasmine Caldwell, FBI Special Operations Division. The photograph unmistakable despite the deliberately dowdy appearance she's adopted for court today. Your Honor, Evelyn's voice shakes as she stands, her laptop clutched in trembling hands. She's telling the truth. She's really FBI. High-level FBI. Director level. The words hit the courtroom like a physical force. Mayor Blackstone shoots to his feet so fast his chair topples backward, the crash echoing in the sudden silence. Bradley, still on the witness stand, looks between his father and Sterling with the dawning horror of a child realizing the adults can't protect him anymore. This is impossible, Bud, Sterling manages, though his voice has lost all its commanding presence. You're lying. Both of you. This is some kind of elaborate hoax. This is it. The moment everything changes. If you thought the first half was intense, you haven't seen anything yet. We're about to witness one of the most spectacular reversals of power ever captured in a courtroom. Subscribe right now and hit that notification bell, because what happens in the next few minutes will restore your faith in the idea that justice, real justice, still exists in America. Share this with everyone who needs to see that sometimes the underdog isn't really the underdog at all. Jasmine slowly opens her palm, revealing the gold shield that catches the afternoon light streaming through the tall windows. The FBI badge gleams with an authority that makes Sterling's judicial power look like a child's toy. Director Jasmine Caldwell, Special Operations Division, badge number 7741 Alpha. And Sterling, everything you've done in this courtroom for the past 8 months has been recorded, analyzed, and documented by a federal task force. 8 months? Garrett Pemberton stands slowly, his legal mind racing through the implications. You've been here for 8 months? Actually, Mr. Pemberton, I've been in Millbrook for 8 months. I've only been Jasmine Caldwell, kindergarten teacher, for 6. The first 2 months were spent setting up surveillance, analyzing patterns, and identifying all the players in this little drama. Did you know Sterling has a very predictable schedule? Court Monday through Thursday, golf with Vincent Torino on Friday mornings, and dinner at the Blackstone estate every other Saturday. Very cozy arrangement. Mayor Blackstone starts edging toward the door, but Jasmine doesn't even look at him. Harrison, sit down. The federal agents outside have been in position since 7 a.m. They have orders to detain anyone who tries to leave before I give the signal. Trust me, you don't want to be the one who tests their patience. The mayor freezes mid-step, his political instincts warring with his survival instincts. After a moment, he slowly returns to his seat, his face cycling through expressions of rage, fear, and calculation. You recorded my courtroom? Sterling's voice rises to near hysteria. That's illegal. You need a warrant. You need authorization. Which we have, Jasmine replies calmly, pulling a document from her bag. Federal surveillance warrant signed by Judge Patricia Morrison of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. dated March 15th of this year. Would you like to read it? Oh, wait, you can't. Your reading glasses seem to have fallen off your nose. Let me summarize. It authorizes complete electronic surveillance of Courtroom 7 and all related spaces, including your chambers, based on credible evidence of ongoing criminal conspiracy. She turns to address the gallery, many of whom are recording everything on their phones despite earlier orders to stop. For those of you documenting this, you should know that Sterling Whitmore has taken over $2 million in bribes over the past 5 years. He's fixed over 200 cases, sent dozens of innocent people to prison, and let violent criminals walk free because they had the right connections. Every single person who has been convicted in this courtroom during his tenure deserves to have their case reviewed. A woman in the gallery starts sobbing. My son is innocent. I told everyone he was innocent, but nobody believed me. Ma'am, what's your son's name? Jasmine asked gently. Jerome Williams. He got 10 years for a robbery he didn't commit. He was at work, he had time cards, but the judge said the evidence was unconvincing. Jasmine pulls out her phone and sends a quick text. Jerome Williams's case is being flagged for immediate review. If what you're saying is true, and I believe it is, he could be home within the week. The gallery erupts in voices, people shouting out names of family members, friends, loved ones who they believe were wrongly convicted. Sterling slams his gavel repeatedly, the sound increasingly desperate and futile. Order! I demand order! You're not in a position to demand anything, Jasmine says, her voice cutting through the chaos. Your authority ended the moment you took your first bribe. Now, let's talk specifics. June 3rd, 2023. You received $50,000 from Vincent Torino. The money was wired from a shell company called Millbrook Consulting LLC to another shell company called Judicial Services International, then transferred to an account in the Cayman Islands. Account number 7349B41. Sterling's face goes from red to white so fast, it's as if someone has drained the blood from his body. How could you possibly know that? Because we've been tracking every transaction, every deposit, every withdrawal. That vacation you took to Bermuda last month, paid for with bribe money, your daughter's wedding in the Hamptons, Vincent Torino's organization footed the bill, your wife's new Mercedes, a gift from the Blackstone family for services rendered. My wife has nothing to do with this, Sterling protests. Actually, she's been quite helpful, Jasmine reveals. Did you know she's been meeting with federal agents for the past 3 months? She found out about your affair with your court reporter from 2 years ago, and she's been very motivated to cooperate. She's provided us with documents, recordings, even photographs of you meeting with known criminals. This revelation hits Sterling like a physical blow. He staggers, gripping his bench for support. The mighty judge who ruled this courtroom with absolute authority is crumbling in real time. Each revelation another crack in his facade. Bradley Blackstone suddenly bolts from the witness stand, making a dash for the side exit. He gets 3 steps before Jasmine speaks without even turning to look at him. Bradley, in about 2 seconds, you're going to run directly into Agent Thompson. He played linebacker for Michigan State before joining the Bureau. I wouldn't recommend testing his tackling skills. Bradley skids to a stop just as the side door opens and a massive man in an FBI tactical vest fills the doorframe. Agent Thompson doesn't even need to speak. His presence alone sends Bradley stumbling backward, falling into the witness chair with a whimper. Smart choice, Jasmine observes. Now let's discuss your blood alcohol content at the time of the accident. 0.18, more than twice the legal limit. We know this because the federal agents following me as part of my protection detail administered a field sobriety test when they arrived at the scene. They have it all on video, including your father's phone call to Judge Whitmore and the arrival of Officers Davis and Kowalski. Protection detail? Garrett Pemberton asks, his prosecutor's mind latching onto the detail. You knew something would happen today? We knew Bradley had a pattern. 3 DUIs in 18 months, always on Tuesday afternoons after his liquid lunch at the country club. We knew that if I positioned myself at the right intersection at the right time, probability suggested he would create the incident we needed. The only variable was whether Sterling would take the bait. He did, spectacularly. You set me up, Bradley shouts, tears streaming down his face. This is entrapment. No, Bradley. Entrapment would be if I forced you to drink and drive. You did that all on your own. Entrapment would be if I made you lie under oath. That was your choice. All I did was give you the opportunity to do the right thing. At any point, you could have told the truth. You could have accepted responsibility. You chose not to. Want to protect yourself from situations like this? Masterclass now offers a comprehensive course on understanding your legal rights, taught by some of America's top constitutional lawyers. Learn how to recognize corruption, document injustice, and protect yourself when the system fails. Use our code JUSTICE for a 30-day free trial. Because in a world where judges can be bought and sold, knowledge of the law is your best defense. Mayor Blackstone stands again, this time with the careful dignity of a politician who knows the cameras are rolling. Director Caldwell, I think there's been a misunderstanding. My son was in an accident, yes. He may have made some poor choices. But any suggestion that I've been involved in corruption is simply... Harrison, Jasmine interrupts. Would you like me to play the recording of your phone call to Sterling 17 minutes after the accident? The one where you said, and I quote, "I don't care what it takes, Sterling. That woman needs to disappear. She scratched Bradley's car and she needs to pay. The usual rate plus a bonus if you can get her actual jail time." Should I continue? The mayor's political mask finally cracks completely. You recorded my private phone calls? Federal warrant covers all electronic communications between subjects of the investigation. You became a subject the day you first paid Sterling to fix a case. That was October 15th, 2022. Your son's first DUI. $50,000 to make it disappear. Should I list the others? How many others? Someone in the gallery shouts. 47 cases directly involving the Blackstone family or their business interests. Total bribes paid. $3.7 million. Would you like me to break it down by date and amount, Harrison? The mayor sinks into his chair, aging 10 years in 10 seconds. The empire he built through corruption and intimidation is collapsing, and everyone is watching it happen in real time. Sterling makes one last desperate attempt to salvage something. You can't use any of this. You didn't read us our rights. This is all inadmissible. I'm not arresting you yet, Sterling. I'm simply having a conversation in open court, on the record, about crimes you've committed. Everything I'm saying is based on legally obtained evidence. When I do arrest you, which will be in approximately 6 minutes, you'll be read your rights in full. But right now, I'm just a citizen exercising my First Amendment right to speak about corruption in my community. 6 minutes? Sterling asks, his voice barely a whisper. That's how long it will take me to finish listing your crimes. Should we continue? July 19th, 2023. You took $30,000 to ensure Marcus Williams received the maximum sentence for a crime yet you knew he didn't commit. His 3 children haven't seen their father in 8 months. Would you like to explain to them why their daddy isn't home? A man in the gallery stands up, his voice shaking with rage. That's my brother. Marcus is my brother. We had proof he was innocent. You did, Jasmine confirms. Security footage that mysteriously disappeared from evidence. Witness testimony that was suddenly deemed unreliable. Your brother's case will be the first one reversed. He'll be home by tomorrow night. The man breaks down sobbing, collapsing back into his seat as others around him offer comfort. The human cost of Sterling's corruption is becoming viscerally real for everyone in the courtroom. August 2nd, Jasmine continues relentlessly. $75,000 to fix a civil case in favor of Blackstone Development Group. The plaintiff, Rosa Martinez, was injured when a balcony in one of their buildings collapsed due to substandard construction. She's now paralyzed from the waist down, living in poverty because you ruled against her claim. The inspection reports showing code violations mysteriously vanished from the court records. Rosa Martinez is actually in the courtroom, in her wheelchair in the handicapped section. She raises a trembling hand. That's me, he's talking about. They knew the building was dangerous. They knew, and they did nothing. We have the original inspection reports, Ms. Martinez, Jasmine tells her. Your case will be reopened. Blackstone Development will pay not just for your medical bills, but for every day of suffering you've endured. Harrison Blackstone's face has gone gray. The civil lawsuits alone will bankrupt him. Never mind the criminal charges. September 15th, Jasmine continues, you met with Vincent Torino at his estate. You agreed to fix 16 cases involving his drug operation in exchange for $200,000 and a property in Florida. You also agreed to ensure maximum sentences for his rivals. Since then, you've sent 9 innocent men to prison simply because they were competing with Torino's business. You can't prove any of this, Sterling says desperately. Actually, I can. Vincent's estate has been under surveillance for 6 months. We have video of every meeting, audio of every conversation. We even have the deed transfer for the Florida property, though you were clever enough to put it in your brother-in-law's name. Not clever enough, obviously. She pulls out her phone and shows the screen to the courtroom. It's a clear video of Sterling and Vincent Torino, shaking hands by a pool, stacks of cash visible on the table between them. October 9th, she continues, you took $100,000 to ensure Bradley Blackstone's 3rd DUI charge disappeared. The woman he hit, Dorothy Wilson, suffered permanent spinal damage. She'll never walk properly again. But Bradley walked out of this courtroom without even a fine. Dorothy Wilson's son, David, who has been sitting quietly in the gallery, stands up. My mother was a dance teacher. She taught ballet to little girls for 30 years. Now she can barely stand. And you let him go because his father paid you? Sterling can't even look at him. His eyes are fixed on his desk, his hands shaking visibly. Should I continue? Jasmine asks. Because I have 63 more cases we can discuss. Each one represents a life destroyed, a family torn apart, justice perverted for money. Would you like me to name them all? Stop, Sterling whispers. Please, just stop. Stop? Like you stopped when Marcus Williams's wife begged you to look at the evidence of his innocence? Like you stopped when Maria Santos's children cried in this courtroom as you sentenced their mother for a crime she didn't commit? Like you stopped when Dorothy Wilson's family pleaded for justice? You never stopped, Sterling. Not once in 5 years. Garrett Pemberton stands slowly, pulling a thick folder from his briefcase. Director Caldwell, I want to make a full confession. Everything Sterling made me do. Every case he forced me to prosecute knowing the defendant was innocent. It's all here. 23 cases where I was explicitly told to ignore exculpatory evidence. Mr. Pemberton, Sterling hisses, you're destroying yourself. No, Your Honor, Garrett replies, his voice steady for the first time all day. I'm saving myself. For 2 years I've been dying inside piece by piece every time I sent an innocent person to prison. I've been documenting everything, hoping someone would come to stop this. Director Caldwell, I have recordings too. Sterling didn't know, but I recorded our conversations where he told me to prosecute people he knew were innocent. He pulls out a small digital recorder and presses play. Sterling's voice fills the courtroom. I don't care if he has an alibi, Pemberton. Torino wants him gone, so he's gone. Make something stick or find another job. The recording is damning, undeniable. Sterling's own voice condemning him. There are 47 more recordings, Garrett says. I'll provide them all. Your cooperation is noted, Mr. Pemberton, Jasmine says. You'll still face consequences for your actions, but your willingness to come forward will be taken into consideration. She looks at her watch. And now, Sterling, your 6 minutes are up. She nods toward the main doors. They burst open with choreographed precision. FBI agents flood in, their tactical vests emblazoned with the bright yellow letters that represent federal authority. Leading them is Special Agent Morrison, her sharp eyes taking in every detail of the scene. Director Caldwell, Morrison says crisply, all exits are secured. We're ready to proceed with arrests. Thank you, Agent Morrison. Jasmine turns back to Sterling, who has shrunk into his chair like a deflated balloon. Sterling Whitmore, you are under arrest for racketeering, conspiracy, money laundering, deprivation of rights under color of law, and conspiracy to commit murder. Murder? The word ripples through the courtroom like a shockwave. Assistant DA Michelle Reeves. She tried to report your corruption 2 years ago. 3 days later, she died in a car accident. Single vehicle, no witnesses. We've recently discovered that Vincent Torino's organization paid someone $50,000 the day before her death. The payment trace leads directly back to a conversation you had with Torino about solving the Reeves problem. The courtroom gasps collectively. This isn't just corruption anymore. It's murder. Agent Morrison steps forward with the handcuffs. Judge Whitmore, please stand and place your hands behind your back. Sterling doesn't move. He sits frozen, as if not moving might somehow make this all go away. Judge Whitmore, Morrison repeats, her tone making it clear this isn't a request. Finally, slowly, Sterling stands. The black robes that have been his armor, his symbol of power, now look like a costume, a child playing dress-up. Morrison efficiently cuffs him, the metal clicking with a finality that echoes through the silent courtroom. You have the right to remain silent, she begins, but Sterling interrupts. I want a deal. I have information. I can give you names, dates, everything. The corruption goes all the way to the state capitol. I can give you senators, congressmen, even Sterling, Jasmine says quietly. You just confessed to facilitating murder. There's no deal that makes that go away. You can cooperate and you should, but you're going to die in prison. The only question is whether it's in 25 years or never. As Sterling is led away, he turns back one last time. You destroyed everything. 20 years of work. No, Sterling, 20 years of crime. There's a difference. Harrison Blackstone is arrested next, Morrison's team moving with practiced efficiency. Unlike Sterling, he maintains his composure, saying nothing except, I want my lawyer. He's already been contacted, Morrison informs him. Though you should know, Thomas Hartley took a deal yesterday. He's been providing us with information about your operations for the past month. This breaks Harrison's composure. His own lawyer has flipped. The betrayal is complete. Bradley is last, crying openly as he's cuffed. I didn't mean for this to happen. I just had some drinks. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. But you did hurt people, Bradley, Jasmine says, not unkindly. Dorothy Wilson will never dance again because of you. And instead of taking responsibility, you let your father turn it into this. Every choice has consequences. It's time you learned that. As the three men are led away, the courtroom sits in stunned silence. Then slowly, someone starts clapping. Then another. Then another. Soon the entire gallery is on their feet, applauding the fall of corruption and the triumph of justice. But Jasmine doesn't celebrate. She knows the work is just beginning. Agent Morrison, I need teams at the homes of Officers Davis and Kowalski immediately. They're flight risks. Already done, Director. They were arrested 15 minutes ago. Both are already trying to make deals. Good. What about Vincent Torino? In custody as of an hour ago. We raided his estate, his businesses, and his safe houses simultaneously. 67 arrests so far. And the State Attorney General? Morrison smiles slightly. Governor's office called. He's appointing a special prosecutor to investigate the entire state judicial system. Apparently, the FBI director had a very interesting conversation with him this morning. Jasmine nods, satisfied. The plan is working perfectly. This story of justice isn't over yet. If you want to see how deep this corruption goes and how many lives will be changed by today's events, make sure you're subscribed with notifications on. Share this video with everyone you know, because this is proof that no matter how powerful the corrupt think they are, justice will always find a way. Comment below with your thoughts. Did you see this coming? What do you think happens next? Evelyn Torres approaches hesitantly. Director Caldwell, what happens to the courthouse now? To all of us who work here? The honest employees have nothing to fear, Miss Torres. In fact, we'll need people like you, people who know the system, to help us rebuild. You preserved evidence despite the danger to yourself. That took incredible courage. I should have done more. I should have spoken up sooner. You did what you could with the power you had. Now you have more power. Use it wisely. Garrett Pemberton is packing up his briefcase, preparing to leave when Jasmine stops him. Mr. Pemberton, you'll need to report to the federal building tomorrow morning for a full debriefing. Bring everything, every document, every recording, every note you've ever made about Sterling's operations. I will. Director Caldwell, what's going to happen to me? That depends on you. Full cooperation, complete honesty, and helping us undo the damage you helped create. That's your path forward. You'll likely lose your law license for a time. You might serve a few months in minimum security, but you can rebuild. The question is whether you have the strength to do it. I do, Garrett says firmly. I became a prosecutor to seek justice. I lost my way, but maybe I can find it again. As the FBI agents process the scene, cataloging evidence and taking statements, Jasmine walks to the window and looks out at the city of Millbrook. Somewhere out there, Marcus Williams is about to get a phone call that will change his life. Maria Santos will soon hold her children again. Dorothy Wilson will finally see justice for her injuries. But also out there are dozens of other Sterling Whitmores, hundreds of other Harrison Blackstones, thousands of other people who think power makes them untouchable. The work is far from over. David Wilson approaches her quietly. Director Caldwell, thank you. My mother, she never believed she'd see justice. Justice delayed is still justice denied, Mr. Wilson. Your mother deserved better, faster, but at least now she knows the system that failed her is being held accountable. Will Bradley really go to prison? He will. Not for as long as he should, perhaps, but long enough to understand that actions have consequences. And your mother will receive compensation. Not just medical bills, but pain and suffering, lost wages, everything. The Blackstone family fortune will go largely to victims like her. David nods, tears in his eyes. It won't give her back her legs, but at least it means something. As the afternoon sun begins to set, painting the courtroom in golden light, the last of the conspirators are removed. The courthouse, which has been a den of corruption for so long, begins its transformation back into a temple of justice. Local news vans arrive, then national ones. The story is spreading like wildfire. Federal judge arrested in own courtroom will be tomorrow's headline across the country. But more importantly, innocent prisoners to be freed will run alongside it. Jasmine gives a brief press conference on the courthouse steps, keeping her statement short and focused. Today, we removed a cancer from the justice system of Millbrook. But our work is not done. Every case Sterling Whitmore touched will be reviewed. Every person wrongly convicted will be freed. Every victim of this corruption will be compensated. Justice may have been delayed, but it will no longer be denied. The questions come fast and furious, but she answers only a few before excusing herself. There's too much work to do for extended media appearances. Back in the courtroom, now empty except for FBI agents collecting evidence, Jasmine allows herself a moment of reflection. 8 months of living as someone else. 8 months of watching innocent people suffer while she built her case. 8 months of patience, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Agent Morrison approaches with an update. Director, we've found something significant in Sterling's chambers. A safe with comprehensive records. He documented everything, every bribe, every fixed case, every person involved. It's like he was building insurance against his co-conspirators. Arrogance and paranoia often go hand in hand, Jasmine observes. He thought keeping records would protect him. Instead, they'll bury him and everyone he worked with. There's something else, Morrison says, lowering her voice. We found references to other judges. This isn't isolated to Millbrook. There's a network. Judges in 6 other cities, all taking bribes from the same criminal organizations. Jasmine nods slowly. Then our work here is just the beginning. We'll need to expand the operation. Director, a young agent interrupts. You have a call. It's urgent. Jasmine takes the phone. The voice on the other end is familiar. It's the FBI director himself. Caldwell, outstanding work. The Attorney General is personally interested in this case. She wants to know how quickly we can replicate this operation in other jurisdictions. Sir, we've just discovered evidence of a wider network. I recommend we maintain operational security while we identify all the players. Agreed. You have whatever resources you need. This is now Operation Clean Slate, and you're running it. As she ends the call, Jasmine looks around the courtroom one more time. Tomorrow, a new judge will sit at that bench, one carefully vetted for integrity. Tomorrow, honest prosecutors will present real evidence. Tomorrow, justice will actually mean something in Millbrook again. But tonight, as the sun sets over the city, families are getting phone calls that their loved ones are coming home. Tonight, victims are learning that their suffering has been acknowledged. Tonight, corrupt officials across the state are destroying evidence and making desperate phone calls, knowing that their time is running out. 6 months later, the Millbrook courthouse has been transformed. A new judge, Patricia Hawkins, carefully selected for her integrity and track record, presides over Courtroom 7. The walls have been repainted, the furniture replaced, as if the building itself needed cleansing from Sterling's corruption. Marcus Williams sits in the gallery, a free man, watching as the last of the wrongful conviction reversals is processed. His children sit beside him holding his hands tightly, still not quite believing their father is really home. His case was the first reversed, and he's attended every hearing since, bearing witness to the restoration of justice. Maria Santos is there too, her restaurant reopened, her children back in her care. She brings food for the families attending the hearings, her way of giving back to a community that supported her through the nightmare. Dorothy Wilson arrives in her wheelchair, pushed by her son David. While she'll never dance again, the settlement from the Blackstone estate has ensured she'll never want for anything. More importantly, she's started a foundation for victims of judicial corruption, using her story to help others. Garrett Pemberton enters the courtroom, no longer a prosecutor but not quite a private citizen either. He's spent the last 6 months helping the FBI unravel every corrupt case, working 18-hour days to undo the damage he helped create. He's lost his law license for 5 years and will serve 6 months in minimum security starting next week. But there's a peace in his eyes that wasn't there before. Mr. Pemberton, Judge Hawkins acknowledges him with a nod. Thank you for your continued cooperation. Your Honor, he responds, and there's genuine respect in his voice, something that was always missing when he addressed Sterling. The proceedings are routine. More case reversals, more innocent people freed, more justice restored. But each one matters. Each represents a life reclaimed, a family reunited, a wrong made right. Evelyn Torres, now the chief court clerk, maintains meticulous records. She's implemented a new system of checks and balances, making it nearly impossible for another Sterling to operate undetected. She's also the keeper of a different kind of record, a wall of photos in the clerk's office showing every person wrongfully convicted who has been freed. 137 faces so far, with more being added each week. The trials of Sterling Whitmore, Harrison Blackstone, and the rest of the conspiracy have been moved to federal court 2 states away to ensure impartiality. Sterling was convicted on all counts and sentenced to life without parole. The murder charge for Michelle Reeves's death ensured he'll never see freedom again. His wife divorced him and testified against him, providing crucial evidence about his hidden assets. Harrison Blackstone received 35 years, effectively a life sentence for a man his age. His empire has been dismantled, his assets liquidated to pay victims. He spends his days in federal prison writing appeals that will never be granted. Bradley Blackstone, the youngest of the conspirators, received 8 years. In a twist that surprised everyone, he's become a model prisoner, teaching literacy to other inmates and writing letters of apology to his victims. Whether it's genuine remorse or calculated behavior for early release remains to be seen. Vincent Torino, the crime boss who corrupted the system, was sentenced to life plus 150 years after being convicted on 47 counts including murder, racketeering, and conspiracy. His organization has been completely dismantled, its members either imprisoned or turned state's evidence. Officers Davis and Kowalski each received 12 years for their roles in framing innocent citizens. Their testimonies helped convict 15 other corrupt officers across the city. But the biggest change isn't in the punishments handed down, it's in the culture of the courthouse itself, where once people whispered about corruption but did nothing. Now there are anonymous tip lines, regular federal audits, and a citizen oversight committee that reviews judicial conduct. The ripple effects have spread far beyond Millbrook. Operation Clean Slate, as it's now known, has expanded to 17 cities across the country. 43 corrupt judges have been arrested. Hundreds of court officials, police officers, and prosecutors have been charged. Thousands of cases are being reviewed. Jasmine Caldwell has become something of a legend in law enforcement circles, though she avoids the spotlight. She's currently embedded in another city, living under another name, building another case. The work never ends, but each corrupt official removed from power means hundreds of lives saved from injustice. On this particular day, as the last hearing concludes, Judge Hawkins makes an announcement. Before we adjourn, I want to read something into the record. It's a letter from someone who couldn't be here today. She unfolds a piece of paper and begins to read. My name is Jasmine Caldwell. 8 months ago, I stood in this courtroom and was denied justice by a corrupt system. But I was fortunate. I had the resources and authority to fight back. Many others who stood where I stood had neither. They suffered in silence, their lives destroyed by greed and prejudice. Today, this courtroom represents what justice should be. Blind to wealth and power, deaf to corruption, and committed to truth. But we must remain vigilant. Corruption is not defeated. It's merely in retreat. It will return if we let our guard down. To those who were wronged by the previous system, know that your suffering has not been forgotten. To those who are tempted by corruption, know that you will be caught. And to those who stand for justice, know that you are not alone. The price of justice is eternal vigilance. Pay it gladly, for the alternative is a return to darkness. With respect and hope, Director Jasmine Caldwell, FBI Special Operations. The courtroom sits in respectful silence after the reading. Then Marcus Williams stands and begins to applaud. Others join him. Maria Santos, Dorothy Wilson, even Garrett Pemberton. Soon everyone is standing, applauding not just for Jasmine, but for the idea she represents. That justice, though sometimes delayed and often imperfect, is worth fighting for. As the applause dies down and people begin to file out, Evelyn Torres makes one last entry in the court record. Justice restored. But the story doesn't end in Millbrook. 300 miles away, in the city of Cedar Heights, a woman named Rebecca Patterson is starting her first day as a substitute teacher at an elementary school. She's quiet, unassuming, dresses conservatively. The principal mentions she seems overqualified but assumes she just loves working with children. In truth, Rebecca Patterson is Jasmine Caldwell, and she's noticed some interesting patterns in Cedar Heights. The son of a prominent businessman never seems to face consequences for his actions. A judge named William Crawford has been making unusual rulings. The police chief has unexplained wealth. She smiles at her new class of kindergartners, genuine warmth in her eyes. She does love working with children, but she's also here for another reason. In her bag, carefully hidden, is an FBI badge. In her car, sophisticated recording equipment. In her mind, a plan that will take months to execute. "Good morning, class," she says cheerfully. "I'm Min Patterson, and I'm very excited to be your teacher." The children respond enthusiastically, having no idea that their new teacher is actually one of the most effective corruption fighters in the country. Meanwhile, Judge Crawford is across town, accepting an envelope full of cash from a local crime boss, completely unaware that his days of corruption are numbered. The cycle continues. Corruption rises, thinking itself safe, growing bold in its arrogance. But somewhere, often in the most unexpected place, justice is watching, waiting, preparing. And when the moment comes, when the corrupt have revealed themselves fully, justice strikes with devastating precision. Sterling Whitmore thought he was untouchable. Harrison Blackstone believed his money made him immune. Bradley Blackstone assumed his privilege would always protect him. They were all wrong. And somewhere in Cedar Heights, Judge William Crawford is about to learn the same lesson. The fight for justice never ends. It's fought in courtrooms and classrooms, in FBI offices and small-town diners. It's fought by directors and kindergarten teachers, by court clerks who preserve evidence and prosecutors who find their conscience. It's fought every day by ordinary people who refuse to accept that corruption is just how things work. And sometimes, just sometimes, justice wins. The final image that remains from this story isn't Sterling being led away in handcuffs, though that was satisfying. It's not the tears of joy from families reunited, though those were moving. It's the image of an empty judicial bench, waiting for an honest judge to fill it. Because that empty bench represents possibility, the possibility that justice can be what it claims to be. In his federal prison cell, Sterling Whitmore lies on his narrow bunk, staring at the ceiling. He's had 6 months to think about how he got here. 6 months to replay every decision, every bribe, every innocent person he sent to prison. He tells himself he was just playing the game, that everyone was doing it, that this is how the world works. But in the quiet moments, when the prison is silent and he's alone with his thoughts, he remembers Jasmine Caldwell standing in his courtroom, calm and dignified despite his attempts to humiliate her. He remembers the moment she revealed her badge, the way his world collapsed in an instant. And he knows, deep in his soul, that justice wasn't served to him. It was served through him. A cautionary tale for every corrupt official who thinks they're above the law. 20 years of corruption, ended by one woman with the patience to wait and the courage to act. Sterling closes his eyes, knowing he has decades more to think about that. Decades to remember that justice, real justice, always finds a way. Meanwhile, 300 miles away, Rebecca Patterson is reading a story to her kindergarten class. It's about a kingdom where a cruel king thought he could do whatever he wanted, until one day a humble teacher revealed she was actually a knight in disguise, sent to restore justice to the land. The children listen with rapt attention, cheering when the cruel king is defeated. They have no idea their teacher is living that very story. Judge Crawford has started making mistakes, getting sloppy, growing arrogant. He's begun to believe his own invincibility. Jasmine smiles as she closes the book. Justice is patient. Justice is methodical. And justice, despite what the corrupt believe, is inevitable. The story ends where it began, in a courtroom. But this time, the gavel that comes down brings justice, not corruption. The person in handcuffs is the criminal, not the innocent. The judge serves the law, not the highest bidder. It's not a perfect ending. There's no such thing in the real world. There are still corrupt judges to catch, innocent people to free, systems to reform. But it's progress. It's hope. It's proof that with courage, patience, and determination, even the most entrenched corruption can be defeated. They judged her by her skin, not knowing she held the evidence of their sins. As the story would later be told, they saw a nobody, a kindergarten teacher, someone to be dismissed and destroyed. They never saw the FBI director, the patient hunter, the servant of justice who would bring their empire of corruption crashing down. And somewhere in America, in a courthouse or a police station, in a mayor's office or a boardroom, another corrupt official is about to make the same mistake. They're about to underestimate someone they see as powerless. They're about to reveal their corruption to exactly the wrong person. Because justice isn't just a concept or an ideal. Sometimes justice is a person with a badge and the patience to wait for the perfect moment to strike. Sometimes justice looks like a kindergarten teacher or a janitor or a court clerk who saves evidence despite the danger. Sometimes justice looks like anyone at all. That's what makes it so dangerous to those who would corrupt it. You never know when the person you're trying to destroy is actually the one who will destroy you. The gavel comes down one last time, its echo fading into silence. Justice has been served. The corrupt have fallen. And somewhere, patient and watchful, justice prepares to strike again. Because that's what justice does. It waits. It watches. And when the moment is right, when the corrupt have revealed themselves fully, justice strikes with a fury that shakes the very foundations of power. Sterling Whitmore learned this lesson too late. Judge William Crawford is about to learn it. And every corrupt official who thinks they're untouchable will eventually learn it too. Justice always finds a way.